They said something including the misinformation campaign together with the China government to create the whole pandemic. And so they don't want anyone tell the truth out. And because I'm the one from inside and also I'm the witness and also expert, so I can help to distinguish this kind of scientific information versus the false ones.
Welcome to Christy Lee Independent Media, KLIM.news. I am Christy Lee, and I'm welcoming today Dr. Yan, who is an MD and PhD in ophthalmology, is a postdoctoral researcher, specialties in immunology and influenza vaccine, and most well known now for blowing the whistle on where this COVID-19 virus came from. Welcome in, Dr. Yan. How are you?
Hi, Christy. Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Now, we heard you at the start more of this coronavirus pandemic. And right from the beginning, you were saying, I know where this came from. It came from the Wuhan laboratory. And it's my understanding that you actually have an association with that lab.
When I work in the WHO, because I have my own network in mainland, and also because I work with the top virologists in the world, so actually I can reach to those labs, including the labs in Wuhan and also even in China CDC or the hospitals in China to get information during the outbreak.
Okay, so that is where you started collecting evidence and found that you knew right from the beginning where this was coming from?
Yes, because since the 31st December 2019, my supervisor, Dr. Liu Peng from that WHO lab, he wanted me to do some confidential investigation about this new pneumonia happened in Wuhan on behalf of the WHO reference lab. So that is the beginning. I get involved into the whole COVID-19 things. And also after that, I got a lot of information, intelligence, and other knowledge.
And I noticed that you got a lot of media attention for this. I know you were on Tucker Carlson and some other programs saying that this was your understanding of what happened. And it's like right away, I mean, I have right in front of me a Wikipedia explanation of who you are, and it's very negative and trying to discredit you. What has that been like, the backlash of speaking up?
They said something including the misinformation campaign together with the China government to create the whole pandemic. And so they don't want anyone tell the truth out. And because I'm the one from inside and also I'm the witness and also expert, so I can help to distinguish this kind of scientific information versus the false ones. So China government knows that all the things I told from the beginning are verified. So they are really scared that finally they would be held accountable because more and more people would realize what happened. So that's why they need to work together to discredit me, and that's called silence. That's called disappear. So make you disappear from the public and ruin your reputation, finally physically make you disappear. It's very communism.
There's been references made that you had political motivations for this. Do you consider yourself political, that you would want to push one idea over another?
From the beginning, I told people this is nothing about politics. From the beginning, I keep telling people that no matter what kind of party you choose to stay with, and no matter what your political faith is, this is something about virus to human. And if you are in a Democratic Party or you are in a Republican or even you are Chinese communist, you don't have the immunity against the COVID-19, right? Everyone get involved. This is about the public health. This is about our safe future with a healthy condition. So this is nothing about politics. But when you go back to the root of this pandemic, when you realize that it is not just something come from nature, but from the Chinese Communist Party's labs, produced by their military scientists and together with the information campaign to make such pandemic, then at that time, hold secrets. You can say that is something involved politics or other things. But remember, the whole pandemic, the origin, and also the way to solve it is nothing about politics. It's public health.
So tell me, do you think that this leak from the lab was intentional, or do you think it was an accident?
I keep telling people that this is not an accident, happened in the lab. So let me explain a little bit more that these are all based on the intelligence and my expertise, and also during the evidence you have seen until now related to lab accident are all not solid. So altogether, briefly, this is the virus created based on the People's Liberation Army's own the unique bad coronavirus, and after gain function studies, finally shipped to Wuhan Virology Institute in some lab in Wuhan. I mean, the Wuhan, those scientists need to bring it out of the lab. There are people who gather this kind of request, and then they need to bring it out of the biosafety level 3 or 4 level labs. However, when it was released in Wuhan, in the community, in the neighborhood, that got out of control because China government actually developed their unrestricted bioweapon program for over 20 years. It is well documented in their own documents. And among the strategies, they clearly mention to optimize this kind of novel bioweapon, they have to do it in a real environment, 100% identical to the enemy's environment. So that means it is something like the community, like neighborhood, because they want to guarantee their new bioweapon can be everlasting in the real environment. And when they do this step, so this is intentionally come out of the lab somehow because they underestimate the transmissibility. That's why the virus finally got out of control.
What was the motivation for developing this and then releasing it? What was the end game?
Oh yeah, I always told people that you want to know the motivation of the killer, you have to ask the killer themselves. However, in this case, I can provide you some evidence to help you understand their motives. So China has spent over 20 years to study the novel bioweapon. And why I define it as unrestricted bioweapon, because it is not like the traditional bioweapon, not something can be used only in the war, target military, and induce a large-scale killing immediately. So they want something looks like nature occurring. And also, once this thing is revealed, they can use misinformation and lies and denial to help this novel bioweapon work. So in this case, China need to spend a lot of time to make all these things happen. So they make all the misinformation campaign. What they want to achieve is finally reach to the world domination by 2035 or even earlier for the Chinese Communist Party.
So this is the main motivation, cut and dry, is for more power and control, correct?
Yes, because those communists, I mean, their idea is to remove the countries like America, remove the capitalism, and also let all the people worship the Marxism, Maoism, and Chinese communism. That's their idea. It's not them to rule the other people, to keep other people like the slaves. It all happened in China, and that is an example. They enjoy that. They grab people's money and also keep people working for them. And that's why they want to push it to all over the world. And also, they realize that America is their primary enemy on the way to conquer the world. And because the military, I mean, the high tech and the military force, China really cannot compete with America. That's why they need to look for the alternative way to destroy the economics, social order, and even civilization in countries like America.
Okay. Now, when you came out with this, of course, there was the campaign to discredit and squelch any talk of this. But as time has gone along, this has become a more accepted theory that this is exactly where this coronavirus came from. And even most recently, a Telegraph article explaining the request from DARPA to fund it from Peter Daszak, one of those that was the participants in the letter discrediting this. So what is it like to see more and more information come up that actually confirms what you were saying from the beginning?
I think that is a good progress, but I hope it can be better, and I'm working on that, because back to the last year, from January, when I delivered the message through the YouTube Chinese blogger Lude, I told people at that time, on 19th January, that the 5 messages, and all the 5 messages are verified, including that China and WHO are covering up, including that human-to-human transmission exists. And the final thing I told people is, this is a virus based on the People's Liberation Army's scientists-owned ZC45 and ZXC21 virus to modify to target human. And after that, I keep doing it. Yes, from the beginning, people say that when they heard that I talk about China is covering up in Fox News, at that time, Americans, even they realized that lab origin actually is quite convincing. And they realized that although scientists, the top people, are lying. So this is a progress, little by little. My message from last January triggered China government, and China government has to change their strategy. And then later, my message in America really can help people to look into the real origin of this virus. And then a lot of people joined to work on that. And now more and more people want to stop you. So this progress is very good. However, I always want to tell people this is urgent, that we have a lot of things to handle. And China was celebrating the trophy from early this year of COVID-19. And let me tell you another information, that in the new 5 years plan for China government from 2021 to 2025, they clearly emphasize that they will use this to help to build the world domination before 2035 even. So think about what it means. It means something very urgent to all of us. We can't stop. We see the good beginning. We are working on that, and we need to keep working on that until people realize what happened and stop it.
Why do you think that Fauci and others seem to try and squelch what's going on and actually seem to be coordinating and complicit with what is going
on? Dr. Fauci and Dr. Peter Daszak and many other scientists like the Ralph Baric and others, I can list that they are the one, they are helping Chinese Communist Party in the misinformation campaign. And China has long-term connection with them. China used them to get money from US taxpayers to support this kind of novel bioweapon study in China. And also, these people, they see the benefits if they work for China to spread the misinformation. That's why when the outbreak come out, they try to help Chinese Communist Party and also help other organizations like WHO, and also promote some policy which is not fair and not reasonable, like the mandates. So these are the things actually, if you understand Chinese Communist Party, if you read the Chinese news, and if you work in this field with those Chinese scientists, you will understand it is something like open secret. Because for the past 20 years, China step by step established this whole top scientists around the world. Because as I told you, they know one day when their unrestricted bioweapon come out, they need the misinformation campaign to help them. And there are a lot of evidence that Fauci and Daszak, these people, they realize the things, somehow they choose to tell you the other thing. we call it lies. It can be verified from their emails and from their behaviors. So these people actually, they are the one Americans really need to ask, why did they do this? And American people need to say what they can do because they get hurt from the behaviors conducted by the scientists. And I also want to emphasize is they are not the only one here to doing this because China use them as tools. If they are abandoned, China still can try to establish the network and use other such tools. So basically, we have to stop China to keep doing this and using alternative ways to achieve their goals. That is the most important.
What do you think it's going to take to achieve the goal, what you're saying, in stopping China from manipulating the message?
Oh, yeah. So, of course, the very important thing is America still has freedom and you still have the separation of power. And also, American people, when they realize the things they are waiting are very important, this can be delivered to the government and this can influence the policy makers. So that's why this is something not from nature, and some scientists are lying because behind that is Chinese Communist Party government using the national power, using the second strongest national power in the world to dominate. So this is the thing they realize, and after that, we need to let the Americans understand that there are some other way to solve the pandemic, like the early treatment and even drug prophylaxis using the cheap and safe drugs, including hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and other drugs. So they don't need to have the panic. But when they use the drug to treat it, they need to aware that China is always preparing for the next attacks, and they can release the variants to again and again to hit you. They also can release the other candidates they are working on, and they're unrestricted bioweapon upgrade, and also they are still working on the development. So in this case, American people should ask your government to hold Chinese Communist Party accountable because China is like the cancer cells. So they deliver this kind of communism ideology to America. They use the infiltration from the military civilian fusion. They use the manipulation. They use the propaganda to brainwash Americans. These are all the things that undermine America. So you have to also stop, pay the compensation to the whole disaster. And in this way, you can cut off the next possibilities of such pandemic in the future.
Okay. I think something that's hard for Americans to believe is that other people living in America, like Dr. Fauci or Peter Daszak, or any of our leaders, would have such sinister motivations. So is there a way to explain why? Is this solely for their own personal interest, for their own desire for power, for their own desire for money? Like, why would they be complicit in ways to destroy America?
Oh, actually, I want to say it's also hard for me to understand why do they do that, because I say they saw what happened. I know they know what happened, and they know what happened, but still they did that. Somehow I can tell you some other things to help to understand their motivation. For example, Chinese Communist Party studied how to use the weakness of human to manipulate people. So they are human, so they have weakness, and they may not have the face of never trust foreigners. However, they know how to use the money, they know how to use the things you like, and they know, for example, in the academic field, something is very important is power, reputation. And China can use different way to help you get promotion, and even the WHO or like in the National Academy of Science in America, all these things. And these are the things fulfill some scientists or some senior office demand. So that's why little by little, they were tied with the Chinese Communist Party's campaign. And then once things happen, they also realize there are huge benefits downstream. And if China win, of course they are safe. So that's the way, I mean, when the attraction is big enough, when the tie is tight enough, so you can assume these people will follow the track. It's like automatically started the whole cascade, and they are just the rules in the whole cascade to help to conduct the misinformation and finally makes the pandemic so worse.
Okay. And then you were talking about early treatments and advocating for those. And then, of course, there's suppression of even talking about that and threatening doctors, licenses, and all of that. So what is your opinion of this vaccine? Do you think it's effective at all? Or what's your opinion of that?
I worked for 5 years in the WHO reference lab for influenza universal vaccine development. And also I'm a doctor and I have my vaccine patent impending. So based on all my expertise, I can tell people from the beginning, I told people don't, rely on the vaccine because we never had successful experience in developing the coronavirus vaccine. That's not because of your lack of money. That's because the nature of the coronavirus. So for example, they did some experiments and they realized the allergy very obvious. And then they realized that there are antibody-dependent enhancement in the coronavirus, which means that for some other pathogen, you get antibody, you get protection against the reinfection. But in the virus like coronavirus and dengue virus, when you have this kind of antibody, no matter come from the nature infection or come out from the vaccine, the antibody, some of them are not protective. Instead, they will help the next infection against the variant become worse. They will facilitate the variant go into your body during the reinfection. And this is something already been shown in the clinical data for SARS-CoV-2. And also, there are a lot of other things we need to concern. First, the very important thing is when you realize this virus comes from a military lab in China, and when you realize those military labs, they work together using the knowledge to make more functions added in the S protein. Remember, I told S protein because, as I said, compared to the military backbone bad coronavirus, they were used SARS-CoV-2 X protein compared to the bad coronavirus. So what have they changed in this 40% genome? Let's think about the add functions like you play in Lego. And you see the function, I have verified some, I've pointed with evidence in my Yan reports, including that enhance the catch of the receptor in human, ACE2, and also including the furin cleavage site, which can help the infection of the virus. And there are also some parts haven't been solved because we know they changed. We know there are functions changed. However, we need more scientists to work together these functions are changed in human. Because of censorship and misinformation, this part now is almost ignored. And also, such as protein were put into vaccine. So image, whatever the good technology the vaccine is, they carry the S protein, which is like the weapon, right? And which carry the function to target human, and you even don't know why it is there. You see the data shows the vessel get damaged by the S protein, and this damage that kind of blood clot. You even don't know where it happened. You just know it's very risky. And you see people get infection, they have more neurotoxicity, like the memory goes down, headache, or the loss of the sense of the smell and taste, all these things you cannot explain. Somehow you know it should be related into the modification, which is also most stay in the S protein. So all about this. how could you feel safe? So these are a lot of things we need to discuss. And because they have skipped a lot of the animal and even the normal human trial process, there are many things we actually don't have the data now. So that's why I call for people first, no mandate, then transparent to all the data, and also focus on the adverse effect and focus on the unsolved secrets in the SARS-CoV-2. And then we can spend time to find the better vaccine. But before that, drugs would be more safe and more efficient.
In light of everything that you've explained, would you say it's actually the vaccinated that are causing more variants? Because obviously the news, the mainstream news is telling everything's the unvaccinated faults. They're causing the variants. Is there any science behind that the unvaccinated could cause variants, or is it in fact the vaccinated?
What I want to say that mainstream media now goes into a very wrong, unfair direction that they try to blame all the unvaccinated population. And that's something also China tried to deliver to America. So the thing is that this kind of mandate policy actually is also part of China's unrestricted biowarfare strategy. Let me explain to you. Because in Chinese Communist Party's document written by the military scientists, they studied that in America, there are, of course, both parties, both main parties will fight for many things. However, they share the same value in anti-bioterrorism and bioweapon. So Chinese Communist Party realized they need to divide it. And they first realized the election season is a good opportunity to divide these things. Whatever people talk about will be conflicting and another useful tool. Whatever mandate they push, there would be some people support mandate and some people against the mandate. Somehow, American will be divided into at least two groups spontaneously. That causes more chaos. And so that's why they try to deliver this here, and it works. And also, because the misinformation campaign among the scientific world is working, so they keep telling you that the early treatment and drug prophylaxis doesn't work. You only can use vaccine. First, no need to get mandate. Second, vaccine is not perfect and even not useful enough. The third is, you see, vaccine cannot stop transmission, right? Even non-scientists now can realize that, and data already show that. So how could they try to maintain this kind of policy? Is they try to convince people that the transmission is not stopped, the pandemic still works. It's not our fault, but it's unvaccinated group's fault. And also, let me tell you, the vaccine can induce the variant because when we do the influenza virus, we say that somehow, let me explain. For example, you have the 10 people there, and none of them, when you have even the good vaccine, still there are some chance that 9 people get protected, but one person, because of individual response, there will be some variant that kind of resistant to this kind of resistant. It's similar. So this virus will survive. And when there are thousands of people, so the amount of the variant survived will be increased and accumulated. And when there is such very huge population, like for example, in America, half of the population get vaccinated, then there means there are a lot of people in their body, there will be new variant somehow come out to show resistance, even if this vaccine is safe and protective. And if you don't have the drugs to treat it, and if you don't update the vaccine, how could you do against this kind of variant? Because quickly it will form the next wave in the pandemic. Right, we see from Alpha to Delta, already that first 3, 4 or more dominant strain happened within 1 year, right? So this is something based on science is inevitable. And also considering that the vaccine itself is not efficacy enough. So that means like 10 people, maybe only 2 people don't generate variant, but the other 8 get different type of variant come out from their bodies. That is just an example, but it can help you to realize the risk, potential risk. That's why I keep telling that we can only tell the theory here because we are scientists, but we need doctors and scientists work together to observe it, to collect the data, to watch your patients and get such data, doing the experiment as soon as possible to provide the data to show the risk of such vaccination, mass vaccination. And before we really understand this danger, no mandate, no proof.